I still love seeing young people open small restaurants.
Me too.
There's nothing that makes me happier than a small restaurant, young chefs that are getting their first crack at this shitty space that usually they built out with their own hands, their dream, right? Their modus operandi, the first thing they think of in the morning is like, what can I give the people today from my heart, right? I'm going to go inside that kitchen and cook my little heart out for the people. And that is like the most beautiful thing. Whenever I drive, this stretch of road between us, I see tons of sites. I'm like, oh my God, what a great field. Yeah. Protected from the wind, a little slope. You can see the sedimentary rock on the side of the road where the ditch is.
The riverbed is right there.
Beautiful stuff, and it's a shame. It's a damn shame that it's all soy and corn. It's so magic to grow something too. I still get fascinated. Oh my God, I grew this. I'm so amazing. Absolutely. Like I get goosebumps. Like I believe we're eating something that I grew. Like it's one of the greatest pleasures of my life.
Welcome to the Market Gardener Podcast, where we believe that small-scale farming is changing the world. Join us for insightful conversations with people who are working to build a better future. A future with less mass production and more production by the masses. The revolution is in the field. Let's get digging. This podcast is proudly supported by Tessier Greenhouses. If you've been enjoying the show so far, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It's a small thing to do, but for us, it means the world. The subscribe button allows us to keep promoting the show. It allows us to keep inviting new guests, more diverse guests, to have these enlightened conversations. Let's keep these conversations going. Help us by subscribing to the channel. All right, so welcome to the podcast, everyone. Today we have one of our favorite guests. It's the second time that he comes. Formerly from Joe Beef, the famed restaurant in Montreal. Fine food connoisseur, grape grower, winemaker, Dave McMillan. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thanks for being here. It's nice to see you guys.
You can bring your mic a bit closer to yourself too.
Bring the mic, not just
whichever you want.
I'm happy to see you guys.
Yeah, I haven't seen you all winter. I forgot to say, one of our neighbors also. So you live in Saint-Armand, which is close to Frelighsburg and to the restaurant here. So one of ours.
Yeah, I'm a neighborhood boy.
Yeah, and I saw you a few times last summer, but also not this winter.
Yeah, I didn't see you this winter.
Well, I guess we all go into that migrating pattern a little bit, right? It's kind of nice to see people, to be honest. I got my shorts out the day before yesterday. I even got my sandals out and everything. And, Father Winter hit us with this.
Oh, my God. Huge snowstorm today.
Yeah, epic winter.
Yeah, so it is what it is, So I guess we're back to doing nothing for a few more days till we get out in the field again. And we're going to start pulling geotextiles off the vineyard on the European vines next week, hopefully. I thought I was going to do it this week, but it doesn't look that way. So...
How many plants again? How do you say?
We have 15.
How do you call them? Plants or
vines? Yeah, plants, vines.
Vines?
We have 15,000 vines planted. The majority of them are European varietals like Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Gewürztraminer, and other things. And then I have about an acre and a half of white hybrids.
Yeah,
which are hardier ones.
Yeah, they're hardier. We don't have to bury them, and we can trellis them high. Right, so I don't know if you've ever driven by, but on the side of the road there, you see all the high trellised, the hybrid vines, right? Which is super interesting. Like I love the hybrid vines. In a good year they make really good wine. In a bad year they make pretty horrific wine, right? But
is there a good reason to stick with the old varieties, except for the name and for what our palates are used to?
Well, no, you're right. Right, hybrid wines are delicious, and the vines are very rustic, and we don't need to cover them, and they're pretty much disease proof. We don't really suffer so much crazy mildew issues like we do in the old European vines, right? So the hybrid vines are pretty resilient and pretty solid. I never go spray in the hybrids. I think we do a little bit of sulfur at the beginning of the year, which is an organic treatment. We're certified organic now. So we do one or two treatments at best. And the other thing about the hybrids is they're quite vigorous. So we can actually leave a pretty good amount of weeds underneath the vines. We don't really need to always be tilling the undercarriage or the row so much, right? They can grow right into the grass, and it's actually kind of helpful because it slows down their vigor, right? So that's kind of cool. They're pretty foolproof. A big hybrid vineyard is kind of a lot easier than a vinifera vineyard. A vinifera vineyard is.
But then that
like
doesn't work, because when you go in the U.S., for example, they say, I'll have a Pinot Noir. I'll have the Chardonnay. So it's like the wines are named by these old cultivars. So
absolutely. And people are used to, like, when you say, like, I like Chardonnay, I love Chardonnay. It's my favorite grape, right? I love it. And, the taste of Chardonnay is, the south of France has some Chardonnay that tastes a certain way. The Burgundy has Chardonnay, tastes a certain way. American Chardonnay tastes a certain way. But it's all Chardonnay at the end of the day, right? Whereas hybrid vines are pretty different, right?
Okay.
Saint-Pepin, I think, is one of the great hope in white wine grapes. Itasca is pretty neat.
That's what you gave me. I have a few of them.
You have some Itasca?
Oh, yeah.
Nice,
It's a great vine. It's a
nice.
fantastic vine.
And I shouldn't need to protect it much, for winter?
At all.
Yeah, I just
Zero.
left it in
Not
the
at all. And, but making people, switch to from European, grape varieties to hybrid grape varieties is like kind of, it's an educational process.
big cultural shift too that would need to happen.
It is, it's difficult. But, out of all the places in North America that have accepted that more than ever, it's here. Vermont does a good job at it somewhat. And, but Quebec, has been drinking hybrid wines for a very long time. You look at, not that he doesn't grow any hybrid vines, but Pervenche is going to celebrate their 25th anniversary this year of, making wine, vinifera wine. It's kind of special. It's an amazing accomplishment. But there's vineyards that have been here for like 40 years now that grow hybrid wines. And, the climate has changed. We know that. That's factual. We pushed, 13% alcohol this year in some of the hybrid wines. We've gotten to 13 and 12, 8 in Chardonnay even. These are things that, you talk to the old timers and they used to fight and struggle tooth and nail to get 10% alcohol. 11% alcohol was like a giant success. But like we're looking at 12, like 12 is European numbers,
Last year was epic in terms of weather. It was just like so perfect.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Beautiful.
We're all fruiting, like anything fruit, because the spring was just dead on the money. The flower blossom was
right on.
What you're going to taste this year, not necessarily from me, but other people, like I've tasted hybrid wines from last year, there's the vintage currently in barrel, the vintage that people will be bottling soon. Delicious. Like this is like, a big Fred at Sarracine has a tank of hybrids there. That's mostly from my farm and a little bit from his. It's delicious.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 moms would agree that the wine tastes good, right? That's always the thing too, right? It's one thing to make wine for wine aficionados and sommeliers and people in the know. But at the end of the day, right, if this restaurant here, we're sitting in a restaurant at the Old Mill in the little podcast studio, but in this restaurant, like, you do 100 customers, maybe 10% of them are going to know a lot about wine.
Yeah.
The thing is 90% of them just want to drink a delicious beverage made from grapes, right?
Yeah.
So the proof is always in the pudding. Like, it has to be the majority of people have to say, yes, I like this, I'll have a glass, right? That's success. My line is always like 9 out of 10, mom approved, 9 out of 10 moms love this wine. So, it's successful. So we're going to see hybrid wines from last vintage, come out at a pretty substantial amount of sugar, pretty substantial amount of ripeness, and delicious.
Do you see? I know. Chris has questions for you also, but do you see in your crystal ball? And obviously, you've planted a vineyard, and you've made that your new long-term adventure. How do you see like people moving into Quebec to this area? Like replacing the corn that's currently growing with more vines and these because we say it's expensive land here, but compared to BC or to Ontario or to the US, it's pretty cheap to buy a piece of land here.
Yeah, it is. We're looking at what down here, we're $20,000 an acre, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a pipe dream that more of those vineyards will come here and establish, or is that?
I was driving here, between my house and the old mill, it's winding country roads, and whenever I drive, this stretch of road between us, I see tons of sites. Like I'm like, oh my God, what a great field.
Yeah.
Protected from the wind, a little slope. You can see the sedimentary rock on the side of the road where the ditch is.
The riverbed is right there.
Beautiful stuff, and it's a shame. It's a damn shame that it's all soy and corn. Yeah. It's upsetting, right? It's very upsetting. And the other thing that's upsetting is guys own thousands of hectares, it's very difficult to find
a small piece.
4 acres, 5 acres,
Yeah.
I think we did something, and historically, you might know more about it than I did, but I know that in Ontario, right, you can still find small farms. And the reason that the wine thing exploded in Prince Edward County is because you could find a house that had 10 acres behind it, right? Many houses have 10 acres, right? Still to this day, it hasn't been all swallowed up by, before you'd have a village with 20 houses in it, and the 20 houses each had 10 acres, which made sense for agriculture. They could either, team up and grow together, or they could lease their parcels to each other. But then I think Quebec did something in the 70s or 80s where the richest guy in the village bought every damn acre in town. And you'll see, when you look at the real estate listings here, anywhere in southern Quebec, you'll see sometimes you see a beautiful house with a barn and a silo.
And 1,000 acres.
No. And 1,000 square feet of land. Yeah. Because all of their original farmland was sold off many years ago, right? And to get that back today, to reattach, the 10-acre plot that came with that house is hire a lawyer and get ready to wait.
The law, Dave, was in 78, and the idea was to protect farmland. So once it has this special zoning characteristic, you can't subdivide it. And at that point in time, their idea was these blocks, because we're industrializing agriculture, they need to be bigger, not smaller. So you can connect blocks and form a bigger piece, but you can't subdivide it in smaller pieces.
Well, we'll see. I'm trying to do something like that right now with a piece of land near me. And
so if you're growing the farm, it's going to work. But if you're scaling down, then that's what I've been tackling with them for all these years, talking about, a 2-acre farm as being viable. But it's something that we're kind of stuck with. But I see the same thing as you do, because I just walked from my house to here this morning to get fresh air, I would say, fresh, cold air. And I see these places, I'm like, man, this would be epic wine country if just more grapes were planted.
Well, that's it. And it's also good for the community at the end of the day, right? Because when we just look at Saint Armand, I love my little village, but I have to drive 14 kilometers to buy a bottle of water. Mm-hmm. There is absolutely zero, sir. I can't buy a sandwich. I can't. Well, there's the little cafe, the volunteer cafe, but whatever. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
We used to have a general store. We don't have a general store anymore. We have zero commeral zonage.
It was quite nice, that general
very,
store.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I bought my favorite pair of boots I've ever bought. I bought them from there. But there's no, we're in a food desert, surrounded by food with no food available. It's nuts. It's absolutely ridiculous that I can't, I have to go to Bedford to buy food, or Freelisburg. It's not correct, right? We have to open up maybe a little more of, commercial zoning in Saint Armand Village, and then there also, has to be work done by the mayor, that it's not just put a for rent sign and rent it to whoever, you have to vet the people. What do you want to do in this space? Mm-hmm. I want to do a bakery that has sandwiches, but I also want to sell hardware in it. Yes. Yes, that. You see that in Vermont. You'll see that in the Kingdom, right? When I say the Kingdom, the Kingdom's, we're in southern Quebec, the most south you can get. On the other side of the border is Vermont, but the northern part of Vermont is called the Kingdom, the Great Northern Kingdom. And you'll see you get a cinnamon roll, a sandwich,
a loop from your chain, your bike chain, or for your chainsaw chain.
Exactly, and a farm coat and good gloves, and maybe some trailer hitches and stuff like that. It's cool. We need more of that.
We got it in Fredericksburg.
Right?
We have it in Fredericksburg.
We do. We're good in Fredericksburg, but we suffered a big loss this year in Fredericksburg. We suffered the loss of that. We had a bakery for a hot year.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful bakery and a beautiful old, loyalist house. Loved it.
Yeah.
And they didn't. The winter is hard there.
It's tough to do
economics.
Business. Even the restaurant here, like it's you want to create these spaces, these places, but it's tough. The winters are tough.
It is. It's a killer. You have to be really on top of it, and it's unfortunate. But I see here Stanbridge, I think, is the village that's thriving the most in recent years. I think you sparked that here. The old mill used to be, good Lord, I remember the old mill. I worked at the vineyard down the street called L'Orpailleur in my 20s. And this was a raucous bar. This was like, you'd fight a hillbilly here in the parking lot, over, looking at his girlfriend not the right way and stuff. It was a tough bar. And
I remember when the first time I came here, when we just moved in the area, Chris. So that was like in 2003, so long time ago. And I'm a curious guy, just came into the bar here and they looked at me and said, you don't belong here, leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. He said, are you French? I said, yeah.
They didn't like Frenchies here.
No.
Wow. This wasn't a Frenchie-friendly, Stanbridge was known.
Yeah.
It's like Stanbridge was English. And, I'm I speak perfect French and English, so I can really be like a wolf.
Yeah, it can be both.
I can be real French if I need to be real French, and real English if I need to be. So it's funny. But now we got the new Blinn coffee style. There's some action going on in the village.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's neat.
It's happening in a lot of the villages around here. From in the last 5 years that I've lived here, so many businesses that I love have come into being since I've been here. So it's all very, very... It's interesting because it's a really hard economical moment for so many, and yet this is also happening at the same time. You'd almost expect that not to be the case, but there's just such a desire.
COVID was neat. I'm not going to say COVID was neat. That's insane, but a lot of new blood came to this rural community after COVID and during COVID. Right? There's a lot of new fresh faces, and there's a lot of kids that are just done with the city. Oh, yeah.
Do you go back?
I do. I have a house in Pointe Claire because my wife is a teacher, and I have a new baby, which I wasn't, he's 3 now, but he was a bit of a surprise, 4 years ago. And so she got a job at Collège Saint-Anne, which permits her to be on the farm all summer, which is kind of cool. But, when it came time for Flynn to go to daycare, I was like, man, daycare is grim down here, really rough. I was like, this is not ideal for me. I don't love it. And I kind of wanted Flynn to go to the same daycare that my daughters went to. So, and it's hard financially to keep a farm and to keep a house in Pointe Claire. It's not easy mathematically, it's like, it's an added cost that I could do without, but it is what it is. I have to figure things out, to make it a little bit more and make sure that I can maintain both of those things.
So last time you were here, you said something that I always think about, which is, I want wine that comes from a magical garden.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And
that's a Vanya Filipovic line, by the way. The person who told me that was Vanya. Vanya, of course, is famous as being, maybe Canada's best sommelier, and one of the greatest wine importers in the province of Quebec, and also a great restauratrice. She has Vin Mon Lapin. She used to be my partner at Vin Mon Lapin back in the day, and now they have Restaurant La Lune, and she has to be credited for saying that. Right? I think I was walking. Shout out to Vanya. I was walking by as I do, and she was probably explaining wine as she does. And I heard that come out of her. And I was like,
Wow, that's
yes, that.
Yeah.
I want to drink wines that are from a magical garden. And she's right. When you're standing in a real solid vineyard that's been co-planted with fruit trees on the outskirts, that's got owl cabins, in the tree line, because owls eat their weight in rodents. So it's a really smart thing to have owls around a vineyard. And flowers and tournesol and just France sucks sometimes, man. When you're in Burgundy and you're driving down that main road, it's just vineyard after vineyard after vineyard, and it's like, and you could see it. Some guys farm the best that they can in organic fashion, but like from one vine row to the next, the other guys glyphosate, and the vineyard looks like the moon. So you can have a vineyard that's like beautiful and full of greenery, and co-planted with whatever you think, but your neighbor, is a cowboy, and he leans on the glyphosate.
So can you tell us about some of the magic from your own gardens over the last year or so?
When we planted that vineyard, it was a corn soy field like everything else down here, but there was a beautiful hill. It's a beautiful sloped vineyard, and what we've noticed over the last, I'll say not the last year, but what we've noticed over the last couple of years is like birds are back, animals are back. It's like just the refurbishing of that vineyard, and my house has created this basically a micro bird sanctuary. There's tons of animals. I got barn cats now. There's possums. Now we have, there's a couple of lynx. I see eagles all the time. We got the buzzards. What are those things called?
Turkey buzzards.
Yeah, buzzards, and so it's neat.
Last year, Chris, I was driving my motorbike, and it's my favorite road. I pass in front of Dave's farm, and they were all up there with big tarps collecting the fruit from the trees, and there was a big operation. You guys were like 6 of you. Yeah. Collecting these sweet apricots?
No, the plums there.
Plums.
Yeah, those little plums that I have. I've got a bunch of those plum trees.
You have serious fruit trees. Big standard ones, old ones.
Yeah.
It felt like it was a sacred moment. You guys were a bit disorganized, but it was...
Yeah, we're not great at anything we do. Like I said before, I think I said this on this podcast, pretty good chef, not a great farmer, but I do my best, know.
It was beautiful, though.
Yeah, it's neat. I'm having a love-hate relationship, though, with the walnut trees.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're super cool, and everybody loves them, and I guess it makes fantastic wood, but good God, like I have so many cuts underneath my feet of stepping on those things, nuts. And, and the squirrels over the winter manage to get into the barn, and they fill my boots with black walnuts, and I find them I found some inside the roof of my tractor.
Nice.
They managed to sneak inside the roof of the tractor, and there must have been 400 black walnuts. I was driving the tractor in the vineyard, and it was like sounded like a rattler, like a baby's rattle.
Yeah.
I was like, "What the hell is this? What the hell's going on here?" I brought it over to my neighbor Pete's, and we opened it up the roof, and there's 400 walnuts in the walls of the roof.
Can you tell us more about what you've planted for the sake of the homestead, I guess you could say? Because, I've been to your place now, and yes, there's the vineyard, but then there's this big other aspect to it, which is it's like an old school farm where you're really growing for the family and for yourself as well. Just a variety of things. There was, I think, a long row of squashes planted. There was tons of baby apple trees planted.
Yeah, so we do a lot of squashes because I like to. I'm not a vegetable guy, by the way. I hate to say it, but it's not my favorite food, right?
Yeah.
But squash is one of the ones that I like, and I kind of grow the stuff that I like to eat. I like to eat cabbage. I like to eat squash. I like to eat Savoy cabbage. I like to eat beans and things like that.
When you grow for yourself, that's what you should do. Grow what you like to eat.
Yeah. I'm still my dream is to grow sweet melons.
Yeah,
I suck at it. I suck. I have red too, and I got downied out on that melons this year, and I think I plant I get carried away with the seed catalogs. There's always these new melons.
Did you get the Baker Creed Seed Company?
Yeah, I got that one, but I also got what's the other one? Like say the big seed catalog, that Johnny's.
Yeah, Johnny's, of course.
Yeah, and I get captivated by, the yellow melons with an orange flesh and all
Everyone
that stuff.
does.
And then it's like,
very appealing when you look at that. It's impossible to say no to.
kill myself growing them. I get like one and it's not great, So I think I just kind of throw the towel in this year with melons,
They're hard. They're hard to keep also, like with rotten free, you need to move them around, you need to ripe them.
Well, right when I get the perfect ones, it's funny animals, how they, it's funny how birds are and it's funny how animals are, because you'll have these melons and they're untouched and they're perfect. And it's like basically, it's like they have a built-in sugar meter in their brains. Like they walk over the melons every night when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. But it's that one day, the second the melon is a little bit sweet, all the melons are gone. Same thing with the grapes. The birds are in the vineyard and they basically, hanging on the wires, looking at the grapes, building nests in the vines.
Yeah.
And
One shot.
One morning, dude, the whole row's gone.
Are you thinking of what we heard from Advancing Eco-Agriculture?
What did you tell us again?
I'm just thinking that, he said that insects, a lot of it, they see in an infrared way, like they see the signature of the sugars, so they can see it like in the infrared spectrum when that sugar is now at its peak. Something along those lines. Like they literally see the sugar.
You're right. I believe in that. I've got this one row in the vineyard of Sauvignon grapes, right? It's a Jura old varietal, which is people love, right? And I only have a certain amount of netting, right? That I protect mostly the Pinot Noir and most of the Chardonnay. And everything, to the left side of the vineyard on the road, I don't cover with nets, right? And I had this one row of Sauvignon, which was just packed with fruit, delicious, and zero birds. They didn't touch it.
Interesting.
And I was talking with my other colleagues. I think we think that they don't see the Gewürztraminer. They don't touch it. It's like a pinkish kind of grape. And then the other Sauvignon is a very greenish, yellowish grape. They don't. It's as if they don't see it. They see the Pinot and they want the Pinot badly, and they want the Chardonnay badly. They couldn't care less about everything else. They love the Itasca, which is a drag. Yeah. So be careful if you get some fruit there. They love that.
My dog will have to be working overtime. Last time you mentioned also things like Hubbard squash, or no, you had the Montreal melons.
Yeah, I grew a lot of Montreal melon last year.
How did that go?
Did really well. Yeah, it did really well. Again, tough to get them to apex ripeness. I really believe you need to like some heavy duty manure. They say the secret to it is the horse manure, right?
Yeah, you told us the story last time of the past.
Yeah, but I was happy with, I think we got like 50, 60 melons out. We even got some to Beba Restaurant, got an article out of it in some magazine.
I met your colleague, your Joe Beef. I have a blank now. What's his name? Your best friend? Fred.
Oh, my ex-partner.
Yeah, your ex-partner. I met Fred a year ago, and he just talked to me about the Montreal melon for like 4 hours straight, giving me all the details.
Yeah, he's very intelligent. Fred has a background in agriculture. He went to the St. Hyacinthe School, and I think back in the day, one of the reasons that Fred and I hit it off was we had similar interests as far as antiques and filling our brains with useless information about the olden days, right?
Well, it's not useless to me. I want to know more. Could you tell us about more of these interesting varieties of anything that you're growing?
I've been following these farmers in Ganawage. Do you know those guys?
No.
They specialize in basically Mohawk, Iroquois, agriculture. They do a little bit of that's Three Sisters kind of setup.
The corn
but they also have a seed bank. Right. And a friend of mine, Alfred Tayaki, is it's like a scholar, First Nations scholar. I think he used to teach at University of Victoria. Now he's a writer. And, he sparked my interest in that a lot. And I've read a lot about native squash, like, the Iroquois squash is the one that I'm going for this year in a big way.
Oh, what is it?
It kind of looks like that. They in the southern states they always talk about the candy roaster. The candy roaster.
Yeah.
It's pretty like they get to 3 feet long. They have the diameter of maybe a smaller basketball, maybe a volleyball diameter. A perfect candy roaster is like one of those old school long watermelons. And that's a delicious squash, right?
Can we look at it, or is it too complicated, Chris?
Should be able to.
I'm sure you've seen it, right? Hubbard is a great squash, but it's huge. It's gigantic. And you know what's weird with Hubbard? His mom,
Go to image.
Yeah, there's that second picture there.
Okay,
That's a
longer.
Yeah.
And like these, like really big.
Okay, so you're into that.
I like that. And it's pretty bulletproof, right? So the Iroquois would basically go, as you know, they traveled everywhere. So they would plant these gardens, these Three Sisters gardens, which are weird because it's corn and beans going up the corn stalk, and the ground cover is squash. So think about it. The squash is, creating shade on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And keeping the weeds out while the corn grows tall. And then the pole beans climb up the stalk of the corn, right? And I think that when you plant them, these things happen automatically. So so let's say you planted a field somewhere in the forest, or in a clearing, of course, and then you went about your Mohawk things, traveling up and down rivers and doing other things and hunting and caring for your family. But you come back to this plot.
It's there.
And when you get back to that plot, not only do you have corn, but you have beans and you have squash.
Yeah,
which makes sense. And now think about that.
Make us a meal with it.
What exactly? What is the most epic North American meal? Like a squash chowder with corn and beans. When you're eating something like that, you're like, this is an ancient meal.
And all of it's going to store and last for the winter.
Oh, correct. And don't forget the pole beans, you let them go dry. You can let the corn go dry and the squash is going to store. Yeah. But you can also eat it when, the corn is fresh and the beans are still tender, right? But the application of that meal as such, and think about it too, like nutritionally, you got protein there. It's a pretty wholesome meal, corns, beans, and squash. It's a epic meal. Now, of course, in modern days, we sex it up with olive oil, salt, pepper, herbs, and, butter. So it's great.
So they would plant that, leave, and then they would come back and they would just collect it. Yeah. Because it was curing.
Correct. You should try it here. Just do a row of Three Sisters.
You've probably heard that they would put a dead fish.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We were all taught that in elementary school.
Yeah. My dad used to say, when he was a kid growing up in Prince Edward Island, that they would see, sometimes you've probably seen images like this on Instagram. And sometimes, there's a big storm at sea, and the beach is covered with lobsters. Sometimes the lobsters just get swept up. They would pick everything up, the seaweed, the lobsters, and just till all of that into the gardens. It wasn't uncommon to walk through a potato field and see like corn, lobster heads in the field, right? They do that with, they have the Oyster project in the Harlem River in New York. Have you ever seen that project?
No. Hard for me to imagine eating an oyster out of the...
No, so check it out. So one of the greatest things, there's a book called the I forget the name of the book, but I think it's a Kurlansky book on New York City and the oyster. One of the most amazing things about North America and people coming here was, if you look at a map of the island of Manhattan and the East River, the Harlem River and all that, okay, the way that just erase civilization from New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. It's one of the greatest oyster estuaries in North America. Okay, that river system and the way the island is and all the bays and stuff. It was one of the greatest oyster systems in all of North America. One of the reasons for massive population and expansion happening in New York City is because of the oyster. The history of the oyster in that time and that place is created the population boom of New York City. So you could get off a boat from Ireland, from anywhere in Europe, starving to death. You just spent a month and a half on a boat, you're skin and bones, you drag your sorry ass off the dock, and you might not even speak the same language as the other people there. You might be Romanian, but you could walk to the river and fish out. There's oysters everywhere, all around the place. You could fish out an oyster or 5. Don't forget, 1 oyster is 10 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 grams of protein for a small oyster. A big oyster is 10 grams of protein. Big oysters even more.
Yeah.
It's a readily available source of protein that was free. It permitted people to sleep in the street, to walk to the water, eat 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 grams of protein, and live another day. Eventually, you would find a job, and you could have meat and chicken like the other people. You see what I'm saying? But the oysters at that time in that amount were catamount is the wrong word, but incredibly beneficial because it was a readily available source of food for the people to live another day. Right? If you even look at old historical books, like you see ancient pictures of the 5 Points neighborhood in New York City, the oysters were readily available. There's people shucking oysters everywhere, right? Even Montreal, weirdly, Montreal would produce goods and textiles in the plants, right? And we would ship all that out to the Maritimes, right? And the boats would come back and ballast with barrels and barrels of oysters. Back then, they used to pack oysters. In boxes and barrels, pine boxes and barrels in mud. So they would basically shovel the oysters out of the mud into boxes. But this is beneficial because the oyster was packed in these boxes of mud, and you could get them to Montreal by, of course, horse-drawn buggy. Would go down to Dominion Square Tavern was actually still open to this day. But there's ancient pictures in this book called The Golden Square Mile of gigantic, like, piles of oysters inside the restaurant because, people would go work at that Sun Life building back in those days and businesses around and basically finish work and eat your fill with oysters and beer and then go home with your horse, right? Oysters packed in mud like that, you could take a barrel of oysters and leave it in the basement of a building and the oysters would last for months.
It's even easier than salt pork.
Which
was like everyone was eating that as well.
Yeah, they're probably fed up with it. Like to actually finish your day of work and have a few oysters with a pint of black beer is probably something nice, Yeah. And that was a big thing. So yeah, that's Mark Kurlansky, I believe, is the author and the history of the oyster.
It's fascinating how food defines, geography or vice versa, and how people settle and how people organize. This podcast is proudly supported by Tessier Greenhouses. Tessier has always been one of my top choices for greenhouses and tunnels. For over 45 years, they've been manufacturing high quality and incredibly strong structures right here in North America. Their products can withstand the heavy snow loads we faced here in the Northeast, and their prices are among the best in the market. Tessier offers excellent service and expertise, always ready to help with customized solutions. I particularly appreciate their commitment to innovation and their willingness to listen to the needs of growers. At the Old Mill, we use several of their Gothic Caterpillar tunnels and micro tunnel for season extension, and I'm always impressed with their design and build quality. Without companies like Tessier, food sovereignty just wouldn't be possible. So thank you, Tessier, for helping us growers feed our community year-round. You guys rock.
Use promo code MGI10 for 10% off your first order and free shipping in select regions.
I wonder, I'm so curious about, I try to find the history of my house. I have an old Loyalist house. It took me, what does that even mean, right? So these were, after the Civil War, people that came to Canada, right? And, I'm really curious on the original plot, what the hell did they grow there?
Yeah.
When you came here from the South, basically a disgraced military officer, and you set up these houses, what were they growing?
I have quite a few books on the history of
the
area and particularly of the Loyalists. There's a few books, all like the Fredericksburg Historical Society has a lot of stuff.
Did they talk about what they grew?
Well, a lot of it was dairy, and a lot of it was clearing land for cows, and then dairy was one of the number one things. But there was lots of struggle throughout a lot of that time. like early 1800s, late 1700s.
Oh yeah, God, it must have been grim.
And, farmers were struggling. And then there was the whole science entered the world of agriculture, and then that was changing things. And then, I don't know, all that whole period of time, especially with them when you consider agriculture.
Have you seen the picture of going to your house when you're on the pinnacle? It's all wooded today, but back in the days, it was all cleared. At the bottom of the pinnacle, it was all cleared.
There was much less woods in 1930 than there is now in this area, which is an interesting thing because we tend to think that we're always just getting quote unquote worse ecologically, but we're also just we're externalizing and exporting our ecological damage more, which is that's the cynical, sad way to look at it, but it is pretty true as well.
Interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. We got I have a friend who's a metal detectorist, Anton.
He came here.
He came here. I sent him here. He asked me to. He's great.
He's amazing. He's from Ukraine, eh?
Yeah, he came here on the first wave, not this current Putin nonsense, but the last crisis. And so he's been here for a while. And I met him basically poking around a field across. He likes freshly tilled fields, right? I guess those guys, they love that. By the way, I'm also, because of him now, a metal detectorist. I got my own metal detector, and I've taken some walks with him and got the gist of the sounds and what the sounds mean that the machine makes, whether it's gold or whatever.
Okay, the machine detects type of metal.
Somewhat, yeah. You get different tones, you can kind of tell that's just junk. Metal sound, but then the better metals give better sounds, right? But guys, I'm not an expert in any way, but Anton is. So as I've become friends with Anton over the last couple of years, one day I was just like, once you find one or two things, you're like, oh my God, I need, this is insane.
What else is here?
Yeah, it's and then Anton, I want to know everything that you found. And then, oh my God, I wasn't even ready for what, he showed me at all.
Did you go to his home? Does he have a?
No, he brought it over to his. He over a few weeks, every couple of weeks he'll show up and he has a box and he has. It's just not
cannonballs, right?
Oh, cannonballs, bayonets, rifle stocks, little sickles. But this is not even where it gets interesting. He says, when I do this, I find a lot of arrowheads. I go, oh. My dream, one of my, dreams of my life is to find one arrowhead, just one. One arrowhead would make me complete. I'd be so happy if I found one. And he goes, I'm going to bring you my collection of arrowheads.
Collection. Yeah.
Dude, I was stunned. I was shaking when he brought it. He had it in this really heavy album form. We put out a piece of, felt on the table. And this is what blew my mind. Okay, but he had every small ones, big ones, blue ones, black ones, razor sharp ones, large white ones, and then black ones, obsidian. And so we start chatting about. I said, where did you find this? And he goes, well, here. And I go, but that. He goes, yeah, it doesn't make sense because obsidian only comes from here. And I go, yeah. So how would you? He goes, so you have to think, David. Okay. Pre-European expansion. So many people know this. I didn't so much, right? But arrowheads was something when you traveled down rivers, whether you go south, north, east, west, you traveled. You basically every day when you had dinner, you made arrowheads. That was an everyday thing. You were always making arrowheads, and so was everybody else in your family. Whenever you had some leisure time around the fire, you made arrowheads. That's just a fact, right? But then you would travel with all of the arrowheads that you made, right? Hunting and doing whatever. But then you would also trade arrowheads, right? And swap arrowheads. And so that's why that you'll find Canadian arrowheads in southern Texas, right? Even in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And you will find New Mexico Mexican arrowheads here on this farm, probably, right? Because it was widespread. It was very traded. There's no real sense or logic to it. But also, if you ever look at the map, by the way, I love, there's still the narrative, colonialist narrative that when Europeans came here, there was nothing. There was so much stuff here. There was fucking millions and millions of people, okay? There was such a complex First Nations structure. It was very habited and very widespread from coast to coast, from north to south. Okay, there was people everywhere. So, that's super interesting as well. Not to go into it and make a whole big
Close
thing
to the
out of
river
it.
mouths, the riverbeds too.
Well, whenever
the hunting would happen also.
when you see a spot that's amazing, chances are that they also thought that.
Yeah.
So a lot of the old estates along Lake Memphremagog, when you see the beautiful point that goes into the lake, but it also has a babbling brook, but some rich dude bought it 1810 because it was a cool spot in 1810.
Yeah.
A lot of these fantastic estates that are near a little freshwater river, near a bigger lake, hidden from the wind by a hill. What appeals to the wealthy man on a property was also appealing to, First Nations traveler. So often those magical spots are usually camps, or places of interest, right? To look for stuff, right? If it's a shitty dump in the middle of the field, you'll never find nothing, right? But in beautiful spots, you'll find beautiful things.
He came here at the old mill and he did the gardens. He went through and he showed me he found a few stars. I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting, I don't know, like you had some thoughts about this before.
He showed me Irish coins, Celtic
exactly.
coins. He's found Roman coins here.
That's incredible.
But you have to understand, and I say, but how is that even possible, Anton? He goes, this is how it's possible. When people first started coming here from Europe, they came here with everything that they had. There was no currency. Like when people showed up here, there was not like we weren't waiting for them at the dock with currency. There was no currency for a very long time. Before government was set up and they were printing coins, and like that took couple of hundred years before that happened. So when people showed up here from wherever the hell they came from, they brought everything that they had in their pockets. And if that meant that some guys were coming from the Hebrides Islands and northern Scotland, they were coming with all of the coins and the trinkets and the precious pieces of things that they owned. So it's normal to find super weird things. He's found Celtic coins. I wish I had him here just to show, he found Celtic coins, Mexican silver, lots of Mexican silver, right? All kinds of nonsense. Just absolutely fascinating, right? Just, yeah.
David, are you still cooking the best meals of your life right now?
I think so. I do have a problem with I think I am.
Can you share any $400 meals from the last year?
No. I've been, I hate to say this, but, I hate to be captured by anything. But, I did read, I followed this weirdo. He's not a weirdo. He actually makes sense. But, the carnivore diet guy, Paul Saladino.
Yeah.
And, when I started seeing his things, I was like, okay, here's another guy with the cure. Here's another guy with the revised nutrition. Here's another quack, right? You have to be very careful about anything that you see on social media because 99% of it is complete nonsense. But, I worked really hard in the vineyard last summer. It was very tough. I had spikes of, I'm broken. A couple of times last summer, I was like, holy, I'm done. I'm broken right now. I am doing something wrong.
The body or
the body, I'm not eating well, or something, or I'm not eating enough, or I'm not eating enough of the right fuel to get me through these days, right? When you work in a restaurant, you don't really pay attention to it because you're always jamming something in your mouth, right? If it's a scallop, an oyster, a bean, a piece of fruit, restaurants, you kind of neat diet, if you stay away from whatever comes out of the deep fryer, eat pretty good in a restaurant, right? Even as you're preparing, you're always eating raw carrot, raw celery, raw garlic, you're always eating something. But when you're in a field, you're eating what's in your bag, and if your bag has junk in it, you're gonna feel like junk, and that's the truth, right? Yeah. If you don't drink enough water, you're gonna get caught. I've been caught a couple of times, hard. If you don't, if you don't drink enough water, you're gonna suffer hard, and it takes a couple of days to get over that. So basically I started reading this stuff and I was like, I got to change my diet a little bit, right? So I started eating, a lot more fruit. And I started eating a lot more fruit as an appetizer, right? I take have a nice assortment of fruit with before my meal. And then I turned my meals and I maybe just walked away from sauce making a little bit. I started finding leaner, more tender cuts of beef that weren't necessarily what they call primary cuts. Primary cuts are the cuts from the back. So the filet, the sirloin, and the rib, right? Yeah, they're quite expensive cuts as well.
Eating the bavette.
Bavette, or even I like little steaks out of the hind of the beef, out of the leg, what they call the noix pâtissière, the sous-noix, the big muscles in the hips. If you cut those into little steaks and you pound them a little bit with the hammer and you serve them rare enough, and the cow is of excellent quality, the beef is of excellent quality, that could be an amazing source of protein, sliced thin. So I found that like eating a little bit of fruit and then having very clean protein after, and then basically not having any kind of dessert or flour or anything, I regained. I started shedding weight. Then I started eating more, but then I started feeling a lot better. Even like, how can I say, psychologically clearer. Yeah. And I said, this, again, and I'm not subscribing, and I'm not giving anybody nutritional advice ever. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Honestly, I give zero fucks. But eat more fruit.
Yeah.
And
you don't replace these fruits by the vegetables. You're into fruits.
Yeah. I'll say this, and I'm not anti-vegetable. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. Okay. I love growing vegetables. I love them. Staring at these squash pictures right now up on your screen, and these are beautiful. It's I think it's so magic to grow something too. I still get fascinated. Oh my God, I grew this. I'm so amazing. Absolutely. I get goosebumps. I can't believe we're eating something that I grew. It's one of the greatest pleasures of my life. But where was I going with that?
Yeah, plums.
Oh yeah, well you have a lot of fruit as well, by the way.
From your land.
Makes sense to eat a lot of fruit when you have a lot of fruit.
But you don't get those fruits that are imported. You're not eating pineapples and
I will, in the winter you have to. I'm a big fan of citrus fruit. Citrus saved my life this year. I wasn't sick. I was sick last year and I was sick the year before. And I leaned into the citrus fruits this year in a way that, I haven't. There's these amazing Asian grocery stores that are opening all over the place in the city, like T&T Grocers and Kim Chen and whatever. There's a couple in the West Island. And dude, these Chinese grocers, these Asian grocers, I should say, are really good at fruits and vegetables, right? Really stellar. I've had oranges, that just blow my mind. So I'm not going to just say, no way, local only, and I'm just going to eat Macintosh apples all winter. It's not going to happen. Okay. I love an amazing orange, right?
That's the best.
It is
an oranges.
Super beautiful, what they call Indian River ruby red pink grapefruit. Unbelievable. Wow. You eat a half grapefruit and you just feel the energy, you feel your blood thinning and the energy course through your veins and you feel good about it, right? This new orange called a Honeybell, a Minneola. It's not really new, but it's new for me. Minneolas, Honeybells. It's like a little orange with a little nipple on it. God, unbelievable. It's alkaline. It's just amazing, Yeah, so maybe that diet has kind of changed a little bit of the way that I cook. I still appreciate the art of French cooking and look at it. But I kind of used to maybe do too much of the art of French cooking. I don't think it's necessary to practice the art of French cooking Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday, every night of the week. I say let's have a lights out Saturday night meal.
Yeah.
And also let's have wine on Saturday.
Yeah.
And not have wine the rest of the week, Yeah. Especially if you're working outside like this, you just can't. I'd love to have wine every day. It's absolutely impossible.
Not feel good, yeah.
No, it's just not possible. As you get older, I think there's things happening inside my body.
Sunday afternoon is a good time also for wine.
Yeah, it is.
In the summer.
As long as you're still aiming for the 7:30, 8 o'clock bedtime.
Oh, right? Yeah. Right with you on that.
Yeah, but that's why I say the afternoon, because night doesn't work, but just like this little moment with kids and just like being outside.
Absolutely.
My wife says to me, I was struggling through January a little bit, as we all did, most likely. And she goes, "What's your deal?" I said, "I don't know how to cope with this." I said, "I've been going to bed. I like to go to bed when the sun sets and wake up when the sun rises. And now the sun's setting at 4. I go, this sucks."
Yeah.
I kind of thrive in that.
Do you?
Well, just I get tired when I feel like I should get tired because it's dark. And I'm like, yeah, I'm tired now. And then I wake up. I have to wake up in the dark. I hate to wake up in the light
Oh, really?
because I feel like I'm behind. I'm missing it.
Yeah, you're right.
So I will often wake up 2 hours before the sun rises.
And
depending on the time of year.
I can imagine you, Chris, getting to know you a bit more. Are you the kind of guy that just wakes up and just kind of is just alive until the sun gets up?
Yeah, I read and have coffee almost always.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about that. It's all just what you described it last time. This the morning, you make the fire, you make the coffee, put on the rubber boots, and let out the chickens.
It's magic.
That's it is magic.
You know, and I still appreciate it so much. Again, having been from the restaurant business for so many years and not even seeing a sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, and having gone to bed so late for many years.
It's going to be precious.
I'm always just like, the way that my house, the way that the sun rises over Jay Peak from my bedroom window is just, it never gets,
Yeah.
you know, it never gets boring. I'm always like, wow, that's cool. That's a super cool thing, you know?
Yeah, I'm doing the sugarings now at my sugar house right now.
It's that time.
And that's another period where, you know, it's this, like I'm boiling for hours and hours and hours, and it's like, it's not what I'm used to in the fields. Like I'm not dynamic, I'm not efficient. I'm just looking at water boil and doing a few things.
But you got people coming and going. And
people coming and going. They're all excited. They come for
bliss.
like 3 hours. I tell them, this is long, man. And after 3 hours, they're like, okay, this is it. And, you know, I'm there for like 8 to 12 hours.
Are you doing it over electric or the wood?
Wood.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like that flavor.
Chopping my wood and just hanging out.
Where's your
living
sugar?
the good life.
Your sugar shack's out here somewhere?
Yeah, it's on my farm.
Oh, neat.
It's a small. This year I didn't tap as many trees because I just didn't have that much time. Just released a new book and I'm kind of busy. But this is my me time of the year. And it's just like, it's great. I love it.
I remember going to sugar shacks growing up and just watching the old men in their rocking chairs, you know, stoke the fire.
Don't they feel like idols? Like someone I've always been inspired, but just like the old people that seem so incredibly just content with their simplicity.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm always inspired by that.
I am. I just think I always wondered, like, this is a lot of wood to make this much syrup. That was always my concern. I'm like, this is an inordinate amount of wood.
It's a lot of
It's like
wood.
deforestation amounts of wood.
That's why there's reverse osmosis now.
Yeah,
all the other
that changes
tech.
the game. It's like 1/3 of the water.
Yeah. I want to play a game.
Oh, shit.
This is I want the viewer to have a takeaway of some education from you about cooking and give them some inspiration of some ideas for meals in the coming year. And the idea is you're just going to pick a scenario out of this cup, and it just tells you a time of year, a certain scenario, and you're going to tell us what you would cook. What kind of food? So read that.
It's late summer at your farm. The garden's bounty's at its peak. You have friends coming over. They're farmers and gardeners too, and they're also bringing food. What's on the table? Well, you know, first of all, thank you. That's the easy one. It's the best time, right?
Yeah.
And everything's on the table at that time of year. Hopefully there's a bowl of apples, right? There's definitely, I still like, you know, I'm a quiche guy. Like I love quiche. Mm-hmm. I love a good quiche. And so I like quiche Lorraine with lots of the onions still a little bit crispy, you know? And so I always make quiche. And the best meal to share with friends is the roast chicken.
The roast chicken.
The roast chicken. Always tie the legs though. God, I get like super. Really? Oh God, I get angry when I see a picture like someone roasting a chicken and the legs are like sticking out like that. You always tie you don't have to tie the whole bird. Just tie the legs together.
So why?
Just because.
Superstition.
I was told something very crass.
Yeah.
By a French chef when I worked in France about roasting a chicken with its legs open, you know, and he was alluding something to like, is your mother's legs? I was like, no, okay, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
He says you always tie the legs because it keeps the moisture in the thighs and yada, 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 right? So I always had legs, and I put an inordinate amount of salt on chickens. Like people say, oh my God, that's a lot of salt. But it falls off as it cooks. Like I put like a handful of salt on the chicken breasts and don't try to roast your chickens with other vegetables in the pan. Leave the chickens and let them roast in their own
That's
oil.
on the barbecue. That's on barbecue though, is it?
I'll roast them inside. I do them even if I do the chicken in the barbecue somewhat, I still kind of put it in a pan in the barbecue.
Okay.
Unless I'm doing grilled chicken, like Portuguese style or, open, like spatchcock chicken, then I'll do it like that. But, sometimes when you have friends coming over and all that, like I'll spatchcock and grill a chicken, but you got to stare at it. You can't just like throw 2 chickens on the grill and walk away.
Yeah.
A chicken is technical. Like to do it properly, to get the thighs cooked and the thick part of the breast cooked perfectly, and don't burn the skin and get the skin crispy. You're staring at it and you're adjusting the coals and you're moving the chicken from the hot part of the grill to the not hot part. It's technical. Whereas, roasting a whole chicken tied, whether it be inside the barbecue, in a pan, of course, or inside the oven, is a little bit more forgiving, right? And there's a point where you can kind of overcook a chicken too. A roast chicken, a tied chicken, you can overcook it. It's still delicious, right?
Okay, so there's a quiche, there's a chicken.
There's a quiche, there's a chicken.
There's fruit medley from your trees, plums and currants. And
I love these. I do this thing called poire au lard, right? Which is an old recipe. I think we used to. I've done that in different restaurants that I've worked in over the years. But it's basically poached pears. I love poached pears. Poached pears in a salad. People forget these things. Used to be a thing in Montreal restaurants that you would have basically a poached pear slices mixed with salad greens and some nuts and some sharp cheese, like either blue cheese or goat cheese. It's so delicious, right? Poached pear as a fruit. Like fruits as appetizers need to come back, first of all. That's what I've been saying. We need to eat more fruits before our meal. Anyway. So poached pears with bacon I like to do as a side, right? And then I've been making the plum ketchup. Yeah, did you taste my plums, my little yellow plums?
No, but I really want to.
Yeah.
What do you know the name of the variety?
No, it's ancient tree. Right? It's sick. Yeah. It's a sick. They're 4 or 5 trees. They're old and sick, and
but they produce, eh?
They produce like crazy.
Have you pruned them?
We pruned them this year.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. Because there's some branches there that look like they have scurvy or whatever, but it's bulletproof pretty much. I make a kind of ketchup out of them, right? A spicy ketchup, a little bit of like habanero plum, a bit of sugar and vinegar melted down in the pan, what's called a gastrique, and then I put the plums and the peppers in there, and I make this little kind of compote. I also love, right, on a salty roast chicken, right? When you're slicing it and you're dishing it out, really good honey. Like nice. Really good honey on super salty chicken is unbelievable. Like chicken, you can make these morel sauces, you can, practice your French cooking, blah, blah, blah. But the honey on chicken is a magical thing, right? And then potatoes. I don't know if that's the Irish in me, but I don't know about, I don't even understand a meal without potatoes.
Who doesn't like potatoes?
Man,
honestly?
you know what? Restaurants don't fucking like potatoes. It seems like
they don't serve it anymore.
Yeah, it seems it's very uncool to serve potatoes in the cool Montreal restaurants.
Fries made it go out of style, right? It's too basic.
Yeah, but it's also a lot of work, right? Peeling potatoes, getting good potatoes, and all that. We're blessed down here with being able to eat our own chickens and being able to buy some pretty good chicken from the neighbors and stuff like that. Yeah. But the state of chicken right now, I don't know what the hell is going on. I'll talk about it a little bit, and maybe people will correct me in sending you comments to the incendiary stuff I'm about to say about fucking chickens. But there was a period of time where you could get semi-good chickens at the grocery store, and that's like asking a lot. Okay. But I don't know what's happening right now with the chickens. I've done a little bit of recon work on the chicken. And when I talk about chickens, feeding the people, not just like me and you and eating our like sexy
Tyson chicken.
Industry chicken.
Grocery store chicken. I think that everybody's been moving to this bird called Ross. And Ross is the new marketing name for this bird that I think was called 4 years ago R29
Of
or
course.
something like that.
Of
Okay.
course.
This chicken is Frankenstein, right? I was given a couple of birds. Somebody got them from one of the chicken hatcheries out here, one of the big chicken houses. These chickens, if you raise them outdoors, they do not know what grass is. Like, it's so far back in their genetic programming that they don't even have any programming whatsoever to eat a worm, to eat grass. Like, these chickens are made to get fat really quickly. I think it's like an 8-week chicken.
Well, that's how much the standard like meat bird is. The why am I forgetting the name all of a sudden? Just the one that even organic like homestead people will get from
The Ross?
No, not the Ross. The standard broiler bird is about 8 weeks.
I think then it's less.
So it's probably less
Whatever
if
the
it's
math
Ross.
is, it could be 4 weeks. It's like supposedly it's half.
which is
That's why it's
insane.
like undeniable that anybody wants to make money in the chicken business is all switching to this bird. I see them at the grocery store. They're flatter, they're fatter, they look drenched with water. You see them. They're not like, you see chickens in France are
Yeah,
tight
they're
and triangular almost, right? And the thighs are defined, and so are the drumsticks. And you see this Ross chicken wrapped in cellophane in a grocery store, and it's as if they're like, their skeleton is caving in. Basically a frail skeleton holding this amazing amount of meat, which is substandard in taste. And when I taste, I'm like, this is wrong. This is the wrong road that the chicken agriculture is going down, right? Anyway, that's my rant on Ross chickens.
I don't think you're going to upset any of our listeners. They're only going to
Grab another one.
Yeah, there's another.
So I had a bunch of Ross chickens, and like, you know, their feathers fall out. They half of them don't even have feathers. Their feet are giant and swollen, and I think their anus is always open.
Okay.
Like, so they eat
out.
and the food falls out of them. And you could put them in grass, and they just basically they look at the grass
so
like
depressing.
like I would if I was on Mars. They have no idea, right? They just want to be in. It's at this point they want to be in a cubicle, and they want a conveyor belt of food to pass in front of them. You're headed to a potluck at a friend's farm to celebrate the summer solstice. You're such a nerd. What are you bringing, and what else do you find on the potluck table? Well, you know. We split beef, you know, with the neighbors. You know, we break down every year. I buy half Angus, and last year that meant that I think it was 500 pounds of beef. So everybody's
Wow.
yeah, exactly. I had to buy like another chest freezer.
Yeah,
It was
just
like
to
I had no
half a
idea how
gallon.
much meat that was.
Yeah.
Right.
Lot of
Even
ham.
being from the restaurant business, I was like, yeah, man, I'll take the half. I was like, this is so much food, right? It's a ridiculous amount. So yeah, I bring the cuts that I don't like. So if you invite me over, I'm going to definitely bring you what's like a pot roast, because I hate pot roast. I'll probably bring you a couple of bags of stew, because God doesn't beef make a lot of stew, eh?
Yeah.
And a couple of bags of ground, and you know, oh yeah, you know. My friend Pierre Alexandre is really good at. He owns the other vineyard near me there. Okay, he's a bit of a nerd. He likes making a lot of preserves and stuff, and he makes a lot of really good stuff. So I kind of got into it last year. I made hot sauce, a bunch of different kinds, but different. Like, you know, hot sauce is a thing. They're always kind of the same. Too much vinegar, not enough this. I kind of went for it with, you know, the plums, the jalapenos, the Scotch bonnets. I even made pickled peppers. That was a big success. Like, remember like a pickled peppers?
Yeah.
Like the same kind, you know, sometimes you'll see them in the Greek salad, those little the pepperoncino, they call them in the Greek salad. But I made them to go like on the rim of a glass for a Caesar. It's kind of like a little yellow banana pepper, almost 2 inches long. I do that. I made some barbecue sauces, and I made some spicy soups too, kind of. That are, I'm not sure if people will like them yet, but I like it. I also got that machine there. What's that machine called? The blender, the really good blender.
Vitamix?
Yeah.
To do
Do you have one?
No.
Actually, yes.
You probably have one here in the kitchen.
Yeah, you probably do. Yeah.
We have a big Warren blender, but not a Vitamix.
Vitamix is neat. You know, you can do a lot of work with the Vitamix. soups is a thing too that I've, the day I turned 54 years old, I think, is there such a thing as entering your soup years as a man?
It's perfect lunch meal.
Soup era.
No, but like, why all of a sudden do, like, all my life I was like, even as a chef, I was like, soup? No, I honestly, like, I've ran how many restaurants over how many years? I've made soup 3 times maybe.
Wow.
And it was possibly because of a boss was angry or, and then when I would make a soup, I would make sure that it was completely unhealthy, like a butter-laden, cream-laden clam chowder with bacon and, like a really filthy chowder.
Yeah.
That in no way was good for you. And I get to a certain age and I'm like, oh, you know what would be nice tonight? A nice soup.
Yeah.
What? You know? Are you guys at your soup
We
craving?
have a soup a lot, but it's more of, I feel like it's a winter thing more than anything. Soup season,
Yeah.
as some people say.
Yeah. My wife, she's such a great soup.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say
Yeah,
before.
same here.
That I'll move back to a subject we were talking about, and it'll get back into the subject we are on. Was like, when I started eating fruit and meat more, and basically I always force myself to eat the kale that I grow. I'd always force myself to, like, we got a ton of Swiss chard in the garden, better eat my Swiss chard. And, and then I'd eat some onions and cucumbers and whatever and tomatoes. But then, like, I don't know if I'm like, maybe it's me, but I don't digest vegetables super well. And it's like, I've got 3 daughters and I can't just be farting around all the time in the house, right? So I found that when I started omitting most vegetables from my diet,
You farted less.
I fart a lot less.
Nice.
So fruit and meat is good. And it's like a lot less, bloating or gassy, or I feel lighter on my feet.
Yeah.
I feel bad. This guy's made his whole life and career of basically getting people to grow vegetables, and I'm here saying, like, don't eat vegetables. Sorry, buddy.
But I get it. Is it ketosis? Like the state of
Well, yeah, that's the.
when there's no sugar in your body and you're actually using all your fat.
But I feel like I get the
store
sugar
energy.
from the fruits.
Yeah.
But I also see the evil of juice.
Oh yeah.
Like, eat an orange, but to make a cup, like a coffee cup of fresh squeezed orange juice, it's like 8 oranges.
Yeah,
a lot.
exactly.
It's not good for you, right?
Yeah.
Just eat the orange and have a glass of water.
Yeah.
The juice is a killer, right?
Exactly.
So yeah,
I'm thinking that fruits can be making a comeback because it was so travestite. What's the word for that? It was all kind of like these same fruits, all generalized. But when you actually look at different kind of fruits and different varieties of the same, like you described with these super nice oranges, like it's a really cool world.
yeah. Apples
It's a
too.
really
Like I think
cool
we
world.
got for years it was
yeah.
like Lobo, Macintosh, whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I get it.
Granny, what was that one like?
Granny
that?
Smith.
Oh man,
I
that
can
was the worst.
visualize all of what those things taste like, right? It's never a surprise to have a Macintosh or a Lobo. They're good apples, right? They're fine, but it's just a fucking apple.
Yeah.
Whereas, with a little bit of legwork, let's say this. Have you been to TNT Grocery yet?
No.
Oh my God, just go for the. Just go for the.
I'm excited.
Just bring the kids. It's weird as hell. They have the fish, so it's a really amazing grocery company. There's one in Carte des 30 is the latest one that they opened. Not so far from here, but far enough. But Asian cultures have this amazing work ethic when it comes to these fruits. I've had this year a couple of the best oranges I've ever had in my life, couple of the best melons I've ever had in my life. Couple of the best apples I've ever had in my life, from there.
Oh
yeah.
But you know that it ties down to the French heritage because there was l'orangerie,
Yeah,
like
I see.
greenhouse,
Yes.
connected to the houses, the estate houses where they would grow their citrus in the winter.
Well, there's a huge attention in France
Yeah.
to specific, pear culture.
Yeah,
Like there's restaurants that specialize in the Anjou pear, the Pas-Crassan pear, the You know, it's a big thing. The French have we still kind of like, it's a pear. No, man, it's a pear. It's got a name, right?
Yeah.
And their fruits are amazing, and they're really good at different times of the year. And like, you know, we're now used to having strawberries available to us 12 months a year. But we're also used to eating really shit strawberries 12 months out of the year. That's why we're so amazed in June when, you know, July, when you finally do have le premier casseau, the first little bushel of, you know, the first strawberries. You're like, okay, I remember what this tastes like. This is so good. And then you eat the whole damn thing, right? We're used to having really bad tomatoes, right? If you go to the grocery store, September, October, November, December, January, February, dude, there's tomatoes in every grocery store in the province of Quebec. They're all shit, right? No, support local agriculture. I don't care. Savoura, like they're doing a terrible job. The tomatoes are beautiful, too beautiful, and it tastes not good. And I don't know why they always seem like they've been refrigerated or they're mealy. It's disgusting.
Yeah, they've been hybridized.
Right?
For that.
Yeah. It's
Be
terrible.
careful. It's one of our main sponsors of the podcast. No. It's a joke. It's a joke.
But you know, you have to be careful.
What do you think about frozen fruits?
Love.
You love frozen
Brilliant.
fruits.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
sure. For us to make, you know, we eat an inordinate amount of organic Canada AAA fancy green peas. Green peas is one of the greatest vegetables in the world. It makes a perfect soup. You can just thaw them. Don't cook them, by the way. A lot of people make this huge mistake. Open the bag of peas, frozen peas, put them in a bowl, leave them on the counter for a couple of hours, and they will, because they're already cooked.
Yeah.
They're processed, they're shelled, they're blanched, and then they're frozen. It's an amazing product. You can eat them cold with a vinaigrette. You can toss them into a salad, you know, with other greens. You can warm them up with a little bit of butter with your fish or chicken. You can puree them in the Vitamix and have an amazing kind of pureed pea soup. But then, yeah, the fruits are amazing. You can actually get Canada AAA Fancy, Ontario, and organic peaches, you know, frozen in segments.
Frozen berries.
Frozen berries are unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? All of those things. Freezing is a really perfect.
Yeah, I really
thing.
feel that if you're eating in season, you really have all those frozen, you know, condiments to the meal.
Yeah.
Because it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're eating, you know, fresh blueberries, that's one thing in the summer, but in the winter, frozen blueberries, perfect. It's like amazing.
I went to the store, the restaurant wholesaler the other day, and I was looking at the frozen fruit puree section. And there's a company out of France called Boiron. They make basically, I think it's 1 kilo little blocks of every different fruit puree you can imagine, right? And many of them are they have an organic selection, they have a non-organic selection, but then you're like a 1 pound block of frozen black currant, right?
Oh my God.
Like, dude, like $8. It's black currant.
Yeah, that's
is
spectacular.
It's a spectacular fruit.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I have a couple of black currant bushes. And, you know, if I work for an hour under the hot sun, maybe I'll fill my coffee cup with enough black, you know, to be able to basically, you know, make a sauce for a duck or a sauce for a pork chop, you know, for us. But to, you know, to have a black currant lemonade or just a shot of, you know, black currant juice, or, you know, it's super amazing, you know.
When I started farming, one of the best thing that I remember from my my first summer in farming, I was with Richard at Harmony Farm, and they would have these big glass jars, like these big pickle jars.
A black currant?
Or they would just put fruits and a little bit of tea, and they would sun boil it for the day, and then you would come and have that, and it was like, oh my God, like there was something about that was, I still remember it.
Yeah, it's so great. I love it. I love that concept of a sun-brewed tea.
Yeah.
Is brilliant. I also into iced tea again. So I guess I'm becoming an old man. Soup, iced tea, you know.
I look forward to doing those sun teas myself with my own orchard. You want to do one more of these?
Yeah. Should I wait for him?
You can go.
You're up north at a cabin with the family. You spent the day foraging some wild food and you're making dinner. What's the family eating tonight? I'm going to tell you a story. Did I tell you this story about the meal that I made in Kamarasco?
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's actually part of what inspired the idea.
I've had spectacular meals up north. People used to tell me not to eat bass, right? And I don't. I have a little bit of a fish allergy. It seems I'm allergic to I'm allergic to a protein called parvalbumin.
And yet you love seafood, eh?
I love seafood, but there's no parvalbumin in seafood. I also love sushi.
Yeah.
But again, I've studied it long enough that I know which fish are parvalbumin rich and which aren't. So tuna is basically a beef that lives in the ocean. I'm telling you, there is no parvalbumin in tuna. So I can eat tuna and supposedly I can eat swordfish but whatever. So yeah, I caught a bass once up at the lake, and of course chanterelles, and there's wintergreen up there. I don't suggest cooking with wintergreen. But I'll definitely, clean a bass. And I think it's important when you catch a bass in the summer, especially around these types, especially if the water's a little bit murky, that you actually don't grill the fish whole. That's kind of stupid. Clean the fish, pin bone it, remove the skin, produce an amount of fish meat, right? But then there's a trick. It's called candling a fish. Okay, it's kind of important, and this will freak people out, but it's not a thing. Okay. So in like a lot of freshwater fish, especially freshwater fish you catch in the summer, they have like sometimes little parasites, right? So if you take like a light bulb or your iPhone light actually works well, and you hold the fillet of fish over the light bulb or the flashlight or a light, and when you're looking through the translucency of the fish meat, sometimes you might see these little miniature tiny worm-like parasites, right? Now, if there's one, it's fine. You just take your tweezers and you remove it, and it's absolutely normal. By the way, they're in all fish. I've seen them in striped bass. I've seen them in cod. I've seen them in tuna. I've seen them in every fish over my career. This is just something that as a chef, when you prepare fish, you kind of always take a good look inside of the fish meat for any parasites. I've also, split a bass open and just said, look, this is too many parasites, right? I'm not going to eat this, right? So whatever. So yeah, fish, wild mushrooms. That's a good up north snack.
Yeah.
Don't eat bass raw. Don't. You're not a sushi
bass.
chef. Yeah.
So it's been about 5-ish years since you've left kind of the restaurant world. Is that about right? Or
yeah, I might get back in though. It seems there's a project. There's a project that fell on my lap near my house. I always said that I'd do one last restaurant in my life, and I always said I would. One of the last things I would do a restaurant where I grew up on West Island, right? And there's a space that I like. It's kind of available. I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet because I want to have my full season at the farm. I will do this project, maybe, but a lot of things have to fall into place properly according to timeline. Like I need to finish my season. I need to get all my grapes in. I need to close the vineyard with geotextiles. I need to get all the wood in, and then I'll do that project. I didn't enjoy so much this year. I work. November 10th, everything was over, and I did struggle. November, December, January, February, March. I was like, this is fucking long.
Yeah,
this is a lot. Like I need a
project.
I need a winter project. I need to do something.
If you have a home in the West Island, you need to do something.
Yeah. Plus,
there.
Flynn was going to daycare, Andy was going to work, and I'd be like, okay,
Yeah, what am I doing?
I'm gonna doom scroll Instagram Monday and Tuesday. Like, it can't. No. It's not sustainable. So, and I had the kind of craving. I think I got it out of my system, the restaurant business, or maybe it's more the city restaurant. I don't want to be part, and I'm not going to make, if I do this project, I'm not going to make a lot of the mistakes that I did in the past. First, I'm not going to confer with any colleagues. I don't want any. And that's not negative. And it's not, but just like, if I do this, I have to do it in a smarter, a newer way, right? I want to write a menu that's basically family accessible. Mm-hmm. I want to do very inexpensive food, but also expensive.
Yeah.
I want to cover all the bases. I want you to be able to come and have soup for $5, right? A pasta for $12. But if you want that super fancy steak, that's also available. But I also want there to be like a ground beef steak, like a Salisbury steak for very inexpensive. There's a big senior citizen population there that need to be served. Mm-hmm. There's a multi-ethnic population that needs to be served, but there's also a wealthy population that needs to be served. I'd like to be able to build a room where I can feed everyone in, right? I'd like to be able that you can actually go to a restaurant and have like a chicken leg with mashed potatoes and gravy.
Clean food.
Yeah. But I would eat a chicken leg.
Yeah.
Chicken legs are $2 or $3 or, I think you should be able to go to a restaurant. I want to bring back main courses under $20, but I'll still do.
It'd be like a family restaurant.
I want to open a family restaurant, but I also want it to be open all day from 11 to 11 p.m. If you show up at 2:00 in the afternoon, 3:00, that you should be able to sit down and eat. I want there to be newspapers there. I just want to do something completely different, and I also want to shield myself from the restaurant business. I'd like to open this project, but not have anything to do with the restaurant business, right?
And the Michelin guys is not.
I don't have anything to do with that. I don't want to. There'll be no social media posting. There'll be no nothing.
Yeah.
They'll just see this will be this restaurant, and that's that. And I'll cook what I want in it. And it's weird to say. It's like like I have it. I see it. I've seen restaurants like this too, in Miami especially. And not Miami, like tourist Miami, but like Puerto Rican Miami, Cuban Miami, right? I've seen restaurants that in neighborhoods that are not on Instagram, that are busy, that are family oriented, that are delicious, and that are inexpensive, but also expensive, right? Like, it's just a thing. I don't want to say a diner. It's not going to look like a diner. It's going to look like a dining room. But
when you go to Europe, you see them a lot. Like I was at in Italy, visited some growers there, and you have these restaurants where there's like people in their 70s, in their 80s. They're coming for lunch, and it's packed.
Yeah,
having a little glass of wine, having some fresh pasta. Doesn't look fancy at all, but it's packed with people, and you really see the social benefit of having a space like that because it brings people together.
We're seeing it instead
of Tim Hortons.
That's a suburban area, the West Island where I grew up, and like I see this. I want to say separation of the classes, but it's more the separation of the ages.
Yeah,
there's an aged population. The boomers are getting to a certain age, and I don't see that. I think it'd be beneficial to be able to create a room where everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
That the music is low, that, you have to have balls to just make tomato soup, and that it not come with a grilled cheese, and that it not come with truffles, that it not come with some fucking waiter talking to you about olive oil from whatever, it's just like,
you're done with that.
Take tomatoes, peel them, roast them with a bit of carrot, onion, and celery, and then puree them. Add a drop of cream, maybe a splash of gin, not even, or juniper, and just make a tomato soup.
Yeah.
There's such a thing. It's like, why is like, I can't get a bowl of squash soup anywhere.
What would be the
Why can't I get a hamburger steak with an egg on it? Just give me a hamburger steak with an egg on it and charge me fucking $12.
What would be the name of the restaurant?
I can't say yet.
You can't say it.
No.
You're not there yet.
Dave's place.
No.
You're close to it.
No, but yeah, it's this weird art of just doing this thing that doesn't,
Can we talk a moment about the current state of food and cuisine in our culture? Last time you had some thoughts on that, and I think you're someone that's observing that, and you have your own thoughts. What are you seeing right now in the culture? I guess maybe it's here in Canada or just in North America that's really hopeful and inspiring to you in the world of food and cuisine.
well, still more and more, I still love seeing young people open small restaurants.
Me too.
There's nothing
a lot
that
of
makes me
here.
happier than a small restaurant. When I say small, like 20, 30 seats, two partners together, lovers maybe, right? That are just operating a small place. They've worked around and, they're not the best cooks, but they're just good cooks. They know fundamentals, 10 good appetizers, 10 good main courses, maybe a little bit of baking. I love to go to a place where they made a little bit of focaccia for you. There's like 4 or 5 vegetable forward appetizers, and then, locally sourced, meat. But I also love humble food. I said that, like, I've been growing very anti-elite food. I see a lot of restaurants taking that direction. And I know you asked me a positive question with
I wanted to see both
that
sides.
merits a
eventually.
positive answer, but I'm always fascinated by young tradespeople who are opening their first restaurant, their first bakery, their first pastry shop. That is everything. That is the most inspiring. And Montreal has been great. There's so many new little restaurants that are fantastic, still overshadowed by, the other ones that have like old names. It's hard to compete against a Joe Beef, a Pied de Cochon, Tokay, Charles-Antoine Crête, like these established guys that have been on Instagram for 15 years that have solid reputations. When there's a Nolan restaurant that opened and there's like a whole bunch, Parapluie and that's chez Jean Paul. There's a whole bunch of these restaurants and I see them and God, these kids are super talented. Beautiful food, right?
Yeah.
And that's really inspiring.
Why is it exciting? Like, why is that future and reality important versus what could be if that wasn't happening?
Well, it's a dream because that didn't exist, right? It's like when we opened Joe Beef back in those days, everybody told us that this will never work. You're out of your mind. Don't really rewind to that period in time and then rewind to that period in time and think Montreal, think Boston, think Quebec City, think New York, okay? Rewind to that period of time. There was one, I forget her name, of course, right now, but there was one tiny restaurant helmed by a woman, she's kind of famous. Anyway, there was one 30-seat restaurant in New York City that was chef-owned. Like a chef-owned restaurant in Montreal didn't fucking exist. Like Joe Beef is basically the canary in the coal mine of chef-owned restaurants, right? It was the first 30-seat restaurant that had,
When did it open?
I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years ago, possibly. I don't,
Ish.
Yeah.
You were there though.
Of course. Yeah. I'm just not good with dates and time and stuff like that. But, and then many small chef-owned restaurants. I think the best restaurant you'll ever eat at, by the way, is a chef-owned restaurant.
Sure.
And the best wine restaurant you'll ever go have wine at is a sommelier-owned wine restaurant. Look at, Mont Lapin or La Lune. Got basically the best chef in Canada, and his life partner is the best sommelier in Canada. So, then you're the best restaurant in Canada. I think that's how that happens, right? Which is, amazing.
So you still see that it creates culture.
It
All
does
these
create
small
culture.
restaurants,
Absolutely.
Even if they're upper, high end, not elitist because they're
But it also creates neighborhood things, right? Because
Yeah.
you're not seeing these restaurants. Where there's a restaurant problem? in the downtown core of Montreal.
Yeah.
What restaurant is there? I don't know where to eat there. Like, there's the only restaurants in the downtown core of Montreal are non-chef owned restaurants.
Yeah.
They're corporate restaurants.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not even a good thing. Same thing downtown Toronto. Well, no. Everything downtown Toronto, there's no chef owned restaurants.
It's probably so expensive for the rent.
Yeah. So you have to be a corporate entity that's focused on what? Not making good food.
Yeah.
Your modus operandi, with your reason to wake up in the morning, is turning a profit. Whereas young chefs that are getting their first crack at this shitty space that usually they built out with their own hands and possibly their father and sister, father and mother, and a little bit of scrapings of the money from everyone in the family to be able to open this little restaurant, their dream, right? Their modus operandi, the first thing they think of in the morning is like, what can I give?
What's cooking?
What can I give the people today from my heart? Right? I'm going to go inside that kitchen and cook my little heart out for the people. And that is like the most beautiful thing, right? What I am worried about, though, on the backside of that is I'm worried about luxury goods. I don't like it so much, right? Like, fuck off with the caviar, fuck off with the foie gras, fuck off with your truffles. Like, that has to a little bit like, oh yeah, and stop with your like, let's stop pretending we're doing multi-course meals. There's nothing wrong, okay, with an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. Or an appetizer, a main course, the cheese and the dessert, or the appetizer, main course, cheese, or just having a main course and cheese and leaving, right? These productions now of, I think, restaurants cooking a little bit from the hip and a bit of ego, where we're going to see this too. Michelin is going to change a little bit of things. We see what it does to other cities, right?
Talk to us about this, because
Michelin
is coming to Quebec.
Yes.
And it's not just coming to Montreal; it's coming to the province of Quebec.
Yeah.
It's going to be a thing. I know our restaurant is going to get something because we had a letter.
Yeah, you got the
I don't know
the
what
letter.
it is,
Yeah,
but
I'm sure you got a bib gourmand.
Well,
yeah,
we'll see. But what's going to happen? Tell us
it's nothing,
tell us about Michelin. Tell us about what
listen,
it is.
I love the Michelin Guide, and my whole life, like, I worked in Michelin restaurants when I was a kid, and I love that. And a lot of the greatest cookbooks I read are from Michelin starred chefs, and it's very embedded in the culture in France. But Michelin in the last, for me, in the last 20, 30 years has been a good thing for cooking, but also a disaster for cooking. So when you look at countryside cooking, let's say Michelin, to me, when you look at Burgundy or Jura or the south of France, it's basically a nuclear bomb that extinguished any kind of local regional cooking, right? It's very difficult to find, when we talk about the traditional foods of Burgundy, the jambon persillé, le canard au vin rouge, la coupe bourguignonne, le bœuf bourguignon, l'escargot 6 or 12, all of these iconic Burgundian dishes were always served on a wooden table, much like this one, in a rustic house in one of the viticultural villages. There's so many. All of those restaurants were basically decimated by that Michelin Guide, right? Because that's not what they want. They want ridiculous luxury. And ridiculous luxury and food is a good thing, but it's also a terrible thing, right? There has to be a line drawn in the sand. It's like, I won't eat at Michelin star restaurants, not because I don't want to, it's because I don't feel comfortable in that environment. I will eat at natural wine bars that have really good chefs and sommeliers that want to do a good job, right?
So you're saying that it creates a standard.
It creates a standard.
That people go for, and the standard is off because it's not.
The standard is like you basically walk in, and everybody's basically wearing a suit all of a sudden. We're going to take your coat. We're going to walk you to your table. Your table will have a tablecloth. The bread has to all be made by you or somebody else, and has to be some kind of long-winded explanation about all the breads. The butter all of a sudden will have to be something spectacularly different. It's a little bit of sea salt, and the butter's from here, and the chef makes the butter every fucking day, blah, blah, blah. And, the restaurant's very beautiful. The glassware is very beautiful and expensive. The plateware is very beautiful, expensive, and luxurious. And then, of course, the menus are, there's very little examples of Michelin restaurants that have appetizer, main course, dessert. And no tablecloths. There's next to none.
Is this something that you've changed your tune on, though, over your years? Like, were you used to be much more into that at all?
I was absolutely into it. But then I also, I wasn't. As much as I'm into it, as I appreciate the art. I love fine art, right? But it would look bad in my house, right? But I appreciate it, right? So I appreciate that aspect of the restaurant business, la haute cuisine. It's very cool. It's la culture française, la culture European culture of high-end dining is beautiful. It's a beautiful perversion, right? Because that's what it is. It is a perversion. We went from basically eating out of wooden bowls with wooden spoons, and
to palace,
to like fucking eating in castles,
Yeah.
on, Egyptian cotton tablecloths of gilded plates, so I'm still like, I want to eat in a pub, an old, beautiful old room like this one, kind of more simple fare, because it's just as good, by the way, right? Like the bean soup I was describing before, the Three Sisters soup, that's Michelin, right? Right?
Yeah.
When you're growing the vegetables out back and you're serving them with the chickens from out back, it's kind of top notch there. It doesn't get better than that, You're eating the food off the property. That's a Michelin characteristic. But Michelin now is a bit,
for having
foie
worked,
gras, truffle, caviar. Those are things right away that, like, listen, if you have 1 star and you're going for a second one, the advisors, there's actual people that do this, that advise restaurants on how to get a 2nd and a 3rd star. It's parasites, right? But it exists. But they will say, well, maybe the 2nd course should have caviar. Maybe the 3rd course should be oysters. Maybe the 4th course. There is like, these are the 10 most luxurious foods. An Icelandic lobster tail with a little drop of caviar and an emulsive and a celery.
See Chris is completely turned off by all of this.
No, but for real.
It's like,
and a celery root emulsification with fresh sherbet, and the foie gras course, and the this and then that, and then of course you get points for technical
Yeah.
is it really like that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because for having worked with a lot of the chefs in Montreal, like the Montreal scene is not like that at all.
But that's why I think that's why it's very curious, and I think that we're going to see Michelin stars in Montreal, but like these bloggers and all these people, the Montreal people, the self-proclaimed food experts in Montreal will have their little lists of who they think is going to get a Michelin star.
Oh my god!
And I'm like curious. I'm like, sometimes I look at the list and I go, this list is like way off. It'll never happen. But you'll get Michelin stars in restaurants that you didn't even consider. Like, it's funny. I was talking to my wife and I said, I've seen 10 of these lists from 10 bloggers. And I said, I don't know. I think, like, for me, none of these lists have the Club Chasse et Pêche on it. Not one of them.
That's a nice place.
Yeah. And I go, in my opinion, the restaurant that will probably get one is that one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But this is like all you guys completely
Ignored
missed out on this one. There's weird little restaurants here and there that we don't even think of, right? That might have them. So we'll see. It's going to be curious.
Are you getting any signals that regional cuisine might be making any kind of comeback? Because we've had this, obviously the homogenization of things from social media, especially the internet, has been this force going in that direction. And you spoke last time about being quite bothered by that. But then there's kind of a flip side, which is just a lot of people feel, it's cross-pollination. It's nice to learn some other cookings and it's fun to cook something different and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like there's obviously some balance somewhere, but are you seeing anything that suggests to you that there's people that are trying to bring back a regional?
I would say that the Montreal chefs sometimes are too regional.
Like they're pushing too hard against the...
No, but to a point where it's laughable, right? Sometimes. Like this complete obsession about les produits du Québec is like, that's idiotic. First of all, are you talking about a political border? Right?
Yeah.
I brought that up last time. I said, I've heard chefs say dumb things like, "Oh, we'll only ever use lobster from the Gaspé," and I go, "Okay, that's 18 hours by truck." Mm-hmm. The Boston seafood market, the Portland seafood market, is 3 hours.
Yeah.
So is your definition of local product is flawed, right? Because the only way to do regional is choose the amount of kilometers that's acceptable to you.
Yeah.
In a diameter around your restaurant that's acceptable to you. That will go to the Laurentians, into Ontario, into Vermont, upstate New York, and and that's that. And for me, local, cooking locally, I was like, I'd much prefer the Boston market. There's 3 trucks a week that go to even New York City is closer than fucking Gaspé, right? Our seafood mostly comes from Fulton Fish Market in Montreal, right? I don't know,
Yeah.
Sometimes are we not going to use a product from is Hawkesbury, Ontario, because it's in Ontario?
Come on, it's like
Come on. When did Ontarians not become our friends agriculturally? When did Ontario food products aren't good enough to serve 1 hour away, to Montreal? I've never, seen it. Like, why don't you cook Ontario lamb, Ontario pork? There's cheese all along the border. I don't know. The Vermont cheese is available. As much as they'd love to have Quebec cheese down there, by the way. Whenever I go to see my friends in Vermont, I bring them cheese from here. They're super happy. And they give me cheese from there.
Yeah.
This is our friends, right? Especially right now with all this political nonsense. I've had friends who are like, boy, Canadian. I'm like, what? That's insane.
You told us not to talk about that.
No, I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying, like, don't let the politicians decide who is not your friends and what that a border is a line that you don't pass because of regionality. So you're saying that a lot of these guys basically are saying, I'm cooking provincial cooking then, right?
Yeah.
That's weird. So stop using olive oil, canola. Like you have to if you're gonna play that game, okay? La cuisine du Québec, which sounds a little bit, weird. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to look at everything. Oh, maybe we should end this coffee situation at the restaurant.
That's not possible,
right? We're gonna have to end a whole bunch of little things here with we have to take a look at all of the things that we order if we play that game. That's me being extremist.
Well, and it just brings in always to the equation the idea of balance. Because it's so easy to always go all the way, one way. And in local food, we're clearly champions of. Of course, if you go back through all of history, there was still always trading. And things still moved long distances, not all of it. And it doesn't make sense that 2 apples cross each other across the ocean to go to each to where the other one came from. Like, we all know this. Yeah. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that nothing should ever go somewhere.
One of the things I was complaining the most, until this political situation here, I was always angry at the politicians. My whole career, I was always furious. It's like, we don't do interprovincial business. Stop pretending that we do. We don't. Canada doesn't buy Canada. It's lies. Okay. Till a month ago, there's 2. And when there's a lot, there's 4 wines of British Columbia at the SAQ.
Yeah.
2 to 4. Okay.
Yeah, that is
there's
really
never more. I have never seen, I've been buying wine professionally my whole career. There has never been more than 5 wines of Ontario available at the SAQ or in private import. Ever. Not once. Okay. In my whole career, I have never once been able to cook lamb from Alberta. I want to. And I'm sure my chef friends in Alberta, would love to cook lamb from Quebec and duck from Quebec, and have access to the scallops from our estuary, have access to our shrimp, have access to our crab. It was very difficult whenever I had to buy, I wanted to buy some not farm raised salmon. I have to make phone calls basically to British Columbia to talk to fishermen on their boats so that they can catch a salmon, put it in a box, bring it to fucking Air Canada Cargo, and ship it to Quebec so I could serve Canadian salmon in one of Canada's leading restaurants. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now politicians have woken up that we should have always supported Ontario wine. We should have always, there was 80 New Zealand wines at the SAQ last time I checked.
Yeah,
Right?
why?
There's 130 different wines. I think it's more. I think it's 250 different wines from Australia at the LCBO and at the SAQ. Okay?
Jeez.
There's 0 wines from Nova Scotia. Right?
0 from Vermont.
0.
Yeah, that
right?
is really wild.
It is super wild.
And I don't know why.
We're terrible. Well, okay, like I can't say like as wealthy we are here in the province of Quebec with fantastic cheese makers. So is Ontario. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Have you ever had a piece of Ontario cheese in recent memory?
Well, we had a cheesemaker come down last year at the restaurant.
Oh,
they brought some cheese.
So there you go. But
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
But how is it not available? But every cheese from Europe
Yeah, they're here.
is available to your chef.
Yeah.
And he probably gets bombarded with a list every week
Yeah.
from a supplier, right? Every cheese from every region of Italy is available right now as we sit here. I could get a list forwarded to my phone and have access to every damn cheese from every region of Italy available, and in a warehouse in Montreal, can be here by 5 p.m. That's insane, right? And we don't buy shit, inside our own country.
Wow.
No, it's weird if you look at it that way.
Chris, you asked for it.
No, but it's truly.
But I only say wow because I don't think I really noticed that much.
Yeah.
I just
Look at
don't think I
Washington
was
cherries
paying
and no
attention.
BC cherries.
Like I noticed sometimes I'd be like, I'm surprised there's not more, or like, well, it's not the time to talk about this, but I've always thought it was weird that there was just less like American craft brew in stores here.
There's none.
Like, yeah, literally none. And I just always thought, that's weird because we import stuff from elsewhere, but why not right there? And,
It feels like they're trade routes. Like if the trade route is
It's
not
just weird.
established, the product doesn't come.
yeah.
Also, it's what's alarming to me these days, especially in this time of inflation, is when you go to the grocery store and a block of cheddar, Quebec cheddar, sharp Quebec cheddar, you're looking at $22, right? $23 even for a good one, for a nice sized one. And holy shit, the French cheeses are basically half the price of that. I can buy Irish cheddar
Cheaper.
for $7.99,
Yeah. That's
and
weird.
the Quebec cheddar's $18.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like, what's going on? You guys you're grifting us. Like, somebody's gonna write in and say, "Oh, Dave, but you don't understand the social economic blah blah blah." I don't know. It's just like, we know what I understand is common sense. I understand that I'm paying too much for cheddar locally. That's what I understand. And I also understand that it's not normal that, a 1.2 kilo block of Cabot's sharp cheddar, 15 minutes from here on the other side of the border to Hannaford, is $13. 1.3 kilograms, okay, of cheddar. It's a block this big. It's $13. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something going on. That sounds so conspiracy theorist nonsense.
But it is.
No, but I'm just saying, like,
They're, when the buy local thing comes in, like these companies are also jacking their prices because they know.
100%.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but
Hey, we're
Let's rapid fire.
Yeah, we're getting close to 2 hours here, so let's do rapid.
Sorry, guys. I rant a lot.
No. Perfect. You remember what rapid fire is?
No, go for it.
Anyway, it doesn't have to be that rapid, don't worry. What's a book that you've thought about a lot in recent time?
The holistic orchard.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Michael Phillips.
You guys like that book?
Oh yeah, that's the book I mostly use as my guide for my
I didn't.
orchard.
It was gifted to me this year, and it's been on my bedside table.
You making the sprays?
We'll
Holistic
see.
spring spray.
That's what he recommends.
Well, it's a spray with like neem oil and fish emulsion and kaolin clay sometimes. And there's 4 different moments that you do it throughout the spring, and you populate the biota of the arboreal biota.
See, in the vineyard, it's hard to practice a lot, like because it's
already
it's
a
huge.
lot going on.
It's fucking 3 hectares. You know, it's like we can't like start mixing neem oil for the vineyard. Unfortunately, you know, even an organic certification, the chemical spray regimen is kind of fairly simple, right? It's copper, sulfur, basically, and baking soda. You know,
It could be different though. There's so many things.
Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on whey. I actually talked to a farmer yesterday about the whey, and that's actually a possibility.
I've heard about that. There's a guy in Quebec, Steven Subkowiak, I think, on YouTube. He has but he's
Permaculture
the permaculture orchard. Yeah, I think he does whey and has some videos.
He's a
about
cool
that.
guy. If you want to check out his stuff, he's pretty deep.
Oh, yeah?
orchardist.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Subkowiak.
I'll text you for his name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and why are you thinking about that book? It's just you're thinking about your.
And there's some weird things there. I feel like I'd like to know more about why my plums are sick. I'd like to maybe understand more about my gooseberry bushes. I've grown fond of gooseberries. Another old man thing to add to my list of old man changes going through my life. I think gooseberries I hated them my whole life.
Really?
Now all of a sudden they're delicious to me. So yeah, I want to maybe learn how to prune those and make them produce more fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I already asked you this, but we'll probably get a different answer a second time. What advice did you hear when you were really young that you only appreciated much later in life?
What did I answer last time? Did I tell you what my mom said about the gas station? I think.
I don't know. You go for it.
Well, I said it. I think I think I think I talked about my mom and the gas station thing. She always said, "Listen, whether you work at a gas station or at a bank, just like do the best job that you can. Be the politest. Always smile and always give good service." I get that, but I think one of the better ones was what led me to do well in my career was always like be first in, last out, right?
Yeah.
First in, last out.
Let's change the question because your 2 daughters are here waiting for you. What's the advice that you give to your daughters that you hope that they'll pick up at one point?
Don't give them any advice.
You certainly do.
No, I don't.
Advice.
No, I just like be nice, smile. I want them to be happy. I think that's the struggle in its own is just trying to raise women that again, and I'm a fully flawed male.
Yeah. Right.
As we all are, especially my generation of male is full of bugs and flaws and poor programming, that hopefully, I'm trying to be a better person every day, but it comes more apparent when your children, especially your daughters, get to a certain age that you can't just be like the fucking meathead that I was programmed to be, right? So now that they're getting older, I don't know, I'm just trying to a girl dad, to be a girl dad is to I want them to feel beautiful. I want them to feel comfortable in their bodies. I want them to be self-confident. I want them to not be scared of anything.
Yeah. Do you want to vet the guys that come?
No, I'm not going to vet. They'll do it on their own. I think I think my wife is a very strong female presence. My ex is a very strong female presence. They're lucky to have their sister. Their oldest sister is actually going to be 22, and she's a strong female presence. So I feel that they're well surrounded with positive, women that are role models to them. And, that for me is being a girl dad is teaching them not to take any shit from any guy like me. right? No, for real.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah.
just, you have there's no subordination. You are better,
Yeah.
you know, and I do believe that, you know, like they're, I just want them to be happy.
Yeah. Well, they're beautiful girls.
They're funny. Eh?
Yeah, they're beautiful girls.
You're very kind. Thank you.
What are people not talking about enough?
Oh man, that get me in trouble. You know, I'm not going to talk about politics or anything like that. But yeah, what we're not talking about enough is, I think we're in a little bit of a bad spot here right now. It's nice to be in the country because we can kind of stick our heads in the sand and pretend nothing exists because we're surrounded by beauty. We're surrounded by landscape. You know, we live in paintings. It is, we do. You know, where you live, it's beautiful. Where you live, it's beautiful. Where I live, it's beautiful. And whatever my eyes eat is beautiful.
Are you scared about what's being talked about now?
No, I'm not. I'm not scared. I refuse to be scared.
Yeah.
I say, don't be scared.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Yeah, maybe what we're not talking about is don't be fucking scared. Don't run into conspiracies. Don't run into the left. Don't run into the right. I think we have to really, right now, is we read voraciously. Understand when you're being fed misinformation. Be aware how much misinformation is out there. Right? That's one of the weirdest things, is to actually finding real news that I'm confident is written by sentient, moral, intelligent people has become one of the hardest things to find.
Yeah, just like finding good wine.
Yeah. I trust, honestly, I've never thought I'd come to trust nothing, you know, that you read on, I hate to say it. It sounds, again, you know, but I think what we're not talking about is the grift, you know, the
grift. What's that word?
Care to?
The grift, I don't know. I think we're in a weird spot. I don't trust the left. I don't trust the right.
Yeah.
I don't really. I think it's a tough time. I think it's the best time to actually turn off. Be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Worry more about your children and, you know, your property, and because being angry or saying nonsense isn't gonna change anything, right? So I think it's a great time to how did they say? Was it the Fabian strategy? You know, the Fabian strategy, the Roman. So it was like basically retreat to fight again another day. Because right now this doesn't make sense, right? So to go full left or full right or full, and I think the best move right now is to like take a little step back and watch and assess and fight again another day. That's called the Fabian strategy.
It feels like it's sharpening your axe. Sharpen your axe.
A little bit.
Get ready.
Best food experience of the last year.
Oh, I was lucky to. I ate at a restaurant in London called the Yellow Bittern, right? And it's a bizarre. You would love it. You would absolutely love it.
Good to know.
It's the most anti-restaurant I've ever been to. It's managed by I think it's like 14 seats. It's only open for lunch, no dinner. I think they're closed on Saturday, Sunday. I think it's like Monday to Friday lunch, from what I believe. They do 2 sittings at lunch, one at 11 something and one at 1 something. They basically don't have a kitchen. It's just like a small oven near a window and one induction burner and a giant wheel of Irish cheese. So the guy's an Irishman, and he runs it with his partner. She's a publisher of a magazine called The Luncheon, which is a nice food magazine. So the Yellow Bittern and Luncheon magazine. And he's a musician. And he, you know, I think he just destroyed his Instagram account last week. He just got off because he was kind of telling people what he thought of them, and because people are trying to suck him in. He just wants to be this like little Irish restaurant in London and serve basically what he serves. And then he's like, and if you don't like it, you don't have to come.
Yeah.
Basically is his whole thing. And but food critics are a different breed in the UK. They're a little bit bloodthirsty. They love writing sensational stories. There's a bit of tabloid journalism, even when it comes to food in the UK. And so he was visibly having fights with people who weren't showing up for their reservations in the fashion world, basically calling people out, fighting with food writers, basically saying, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, you're an idiot and a grifter. But the thing is he cooks very well. The food is really delicious. You basically show up to this restaurant, have a soup, a very mundane vegetable soup, delicious, nice natural wine list. He has like some kind of braised meat over puff pastry. He does Irish caudal, which is like a couple little sausages, some cabbage, and like potato, like beautiful little lunch stew, Irish cheeses. And then, they pull out the accordion and,
Oh, nice.
yeah, he sits down right there in the dining room and, sings a couple of like sad Irish songs. They have like basically downstairs as well near the bathroom. They have an anarchist library, it seems. There's just a bunch of books downstairs for sale. And it's like, it leans a little bit IRA-ish. He'll hate that I said that, but like, it leans to strong Irish nationalism down there. And,
Which city is it? London.
London.
Okay,
Yeah, he's in London. So the yellow bittern, and it shook me up. Like, I was just like, oh man, this is very pure. The door's locked. So when you show up, you have to ring the buzzer. And then they come and they open the door and let you in.
Nice.
And then you give your table. And you just eat basically what's on this little chalkboard menu. And I was like, this is kind of neat. This is kind of a special restaurant. That shook me up.
Wow. Final one. What's something that you're interested in or obsessed with that is different, that might even surprise people we haven't spoken about?
Well, the metal detecting.
Yeah, it's the new one.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. Also, the new discovery that there's something underneath the pyramids. I'm sure it's taken a little bit of your time up.
No, it hasn't.
Oh, really? You haven't seen that?
No.
So LiDAR, right? LiDAR technology.
Yeah, I know what that is.
They've been scanning underneath the pyramids, and there's shafts underneath the pyramids that go down 2 kilometers, and many of them.
Wow.
Like the size of the pyramid, what's underneath the pyramid is way bigger. Like there's shafts with unexplored. It's just recent LiDAR technology. There's a bunch of stories about it. It's like a big discovery. I love that stuff.
Whoa.
Right. Metal detecting, that. And we laughed about it this year, I think, but I still think about the Roman Empire every day.
Yeah.
Do you guys?
No, it's not my period of history that I am into.
I like the Roman Empire.
Well, we like having you, Dave, so thank you for making the time. You brought some hats from Mayfield Farm.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to say one last thing. Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I made these hats, whatever. I'm not trying to sell
and I
it.
did one last thing to say to you. Yeah.
So, it's spring, and if you live in the countryside like we do, and I think most of the people that listen to your podcast are, right? Anyway, be careful for snapping turtles, man. I've seen them dead on the side of the road. I've seen some hillbilly farmers drive over them. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if they're on the road in spring, it's because they're moving from their nest to maybe their other nest or their other, right? Don't put them in your car. Don't grab them because they'll cut your hand in half. Just kind of push them along their way across the street. Do not move them. Okay, I've seen people put them in the pickup trucks and bring them a kilometer away. That's idiotic. Don't do that. These are old dinosaurs, basically. Just push them off the road. Maybe carry a hockey stick or a broom in your truck at this time of year.
Well, it's Canada, so hockey sticks are there already.
Yeah, I know.
It's funny.
Go get your hockey stick that we all have.
The first summer farming here at the old mill in the garden, I had a big pile of wood chip, and at one point, I was finding these eggs all around the garden.
And
the eggs were everywhere in the garden. I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be a problem." And then, I got scared about it. I asked my neighbor, works in conservation, and we eventually found out that the turtle came into the wood chip pile,
and made the babies.
Because I was spreading the pile everywhere. That's where the eggs were But so
Wow.
you now have a nest for
Did you rope that off?
rope it off?
Did you fence it off? So
No, we just create another an hibernac we call, so that she's gonna come and nest there next year.
have you seen it?
Yeah,
They're neat, eh?
yeah, they're big.
Yeah. They're big and scary.
And I had to pick it up because the restaurant was open. And man, you pick it up, it's voracious.
Yeah, they smell too.
Oh yeah, it was
Intense.
It's big like that.
Yeah, I saw one on Saint Armand Road. It was like easily 3 feet by 2 feet.
It says, "Please look out, help save snapping turtles."
Save the turtles.
Save. The
But
turtles.
it's like I'm just paying, like, you know, be aware that they're on the roads and don't drive over them and don't move them. Just push them along with your Canadian hockey stick.
And one final thing I forgot to mention earlier was you have a new book that you're a
Oh, yeah.
part of or you wrote a part of it.
We should
Or,
have talked about this.
yeah,
No, it's fine.
Spilled natural winemakers, stories and recipes. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so that's coming out in April 5th. That's a book that I co-wrote with Stéphanie Voyer, Zev Rovine, and Xavier Terra, who's a photographer. Zev Rovine being one of the natural wine greatest importers into the USA, one of the pioneers of natural wine importation into America. Steph Voyer is an old friend, also wrote the book, Elena, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Good gal.
good girl, and very funny person. And then Xavier is a photographer who works basically out of Japan. And I'd written this treatment for this book before COVID, right? We'd sold it to Rizzoli, which is a great publisher. And of course, we couldn't travel to shoot any of it during COVID. So I think they went out and shot everything. I didn't want to go. So they went to Europe and they did their like wine things. They shot it and they got all the food things. So I restyled all the recipes for it. And it's weird because it's like the unprofessional cooking of professional winemakers. The recipes are weird. You know, these are the real family recipes. I was always fascinated by that iconic dish that when you go to you have one. You have this one dish that you're really good at that you cook for your friends and family when they come over, right? You must have one. We all have one. We have our go-to dish that we're good at. That's easy for us, but that's always, 9 out of 10 people love. So it's the same thing in that, when you go to natural wine or any vineyard, really, like this iconic meal in France, and especially in rural France, they tend to be super weird, which is fun because you could have like basically a veal face, Tête de
It's the
veau,
family dish, yeah.
tête de veau sauce ravigotte, which is like, oh God, that's a downer.
Yeah.
But it's good. They love it, right? But I don't love having a face for dinner. But anyway, we didn't put that in the book. So we just wrote up that book with all the pictures, and now it's finally coming to fruition. So
In May it releases?
It was supposed to be May 5th. I actually changed the date this morning. We just got delayed at the printing press. So now we're going to be hawking that book as of April 4th with a couple of events in Montreal and a couple of events in New York City. And then, of course, Steph and everybody will do their own little events.
Come and showcase it at the Old Mill.
Yeah, for
That'd
sure.
be fun.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get some books over here.
So
And
the book's on the website, hayfieldfarm.ca. You can check it out. And I hope you guys like this show. We did. It was fun to have you, Dave. Thanks for making the detour. And if anything else, we'll see you all next time. We're out. Have a good time, everyone.
thank you.
Hope you're enjoying the podcast. These are important conversations, and we're really excited to have them and to share them with everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to it, download the episodes, and please rate them. It makes a difference for us. We want to know what you think about these conversations. They're important. Check out the work that we do at the Market Gardener Institute. You can check out our website, themarketgardener.com. Our mission is to multiply the number of small ecological farms around the world. And we do this by offering training, online courses to new aspiring farmers, but also to seasoned growers. We're helping them take it to the next level. So you can check out the work that we do. You can follow us on social media. You can sign up to our newsletter to get a lot of freebies about gardening, farming, but also about how small-scale farming is changing the world. And that's really what we're all about, and that's really what this is all about. So again, thank you for tuning in. Super excited that you guys are on board. We are changing the world.